Our guest today is Medina County Attorney Robert Campbell. Bob has been practicing law since 1992. He graduated from the Case Western Reserve College of Law and is currently an associate with the Medina firm of Brown and Amodio, where he acts as the chief litigator. Bob also worked as an assistant prosecutor, handling many high-profile cases. Welcome, Bob.
Thanks, John. Thanks for having me.
Well, thanks for being here today. Bob, lots going on here in the world of the law, of course, and I read in the paper recently that the Ohio legislature, actually during their lame duck session, passed something or some adjustment to something called the Castle Doctrine. And I found it to be kind of interesting. Apparently the Castle Doctrine has something to do with defense of our homes. Can you tell the folks what the Castle Doctrine is all about?
Essentially, John, what the Castle Doctrine is an amendment to the prior state of the law as far as self-defense. And what it does is it affects a person's right to use deadly force against another if that person is attempting to gain access into their home or a vehicle that the person who would be using the self-defense is occupying.
I see. Is this a totally new concept, or
it's not? It's kind of new to Ohio. Currently, about 20 states in the United States have a form of the Castle Doctrine, but really it's just a new way at looking at self-defense. Ohio has always had self-defense as a defense against a criminal charge of assault or even murder or any other type of homicide.
I see.
But the Castle Doctrine, as it was amended, changes a little bit how self-defense works if somebody is charged with a crime like that.
I see. Well, this amendment, Bob, that the legislature did here in its lame duck session, I saw it in the paper, I think it was in December. When does that become effective?
Well, actually, John, it took effect in September of this year, so it's been in effect for a few months. There really, to my knowledge, haven't been too many situations in which this is applied yet, and it certainly hasn't gone through the courts for any significant interpretation. But it is it is the law right now.
So it's the law as we speak now.
Yeah, sure
it's statutory law. I imagine much of self-defense goes back to common law.
Absolutely.
But it's now been codified. Well, what was the law regarding self-defense prior to the time of this amendment?
Self-defense is kind of a complicated situation, and it would have different applications depending on the type of force that was being exerted against a person and the location of where this force was being exerted. But the way self-defense would work in the past was if somebody injured or killed another person and was charged with an assault or a homicide, it was the person who was on trial's burden to establish the elements of self-defense as what's called an affirmative defense. And it was their burden at trial to prove all of those elements by what's called a preponderance of the evidence, or a greater weight of the evidence.
Okay.
What the Castle Doctrine did was not only did it change some of the elements of what self-defense is comprised of, but it also took away the burden on the defendant of proving self-defense by a preponderance of the evidence. Now, if certain circumstances exist, it is presumed that the person acted in self-defense.
I see. Well, some of these circumstances, Bob, I mean, I could even remember from when I was a kid, there was always, I think, a common notion, if somebody comes into your house, you could shoot them. I don't know if that's totally accurate, but is this, what we're talking about, is that somewhat relevant to that type of thinking?
Well, yes, and I think most people always kind of assumed that that was the case, even though it wasn't. Prior to the Castle Doctrine being passed, if there was an intruder in your home, you would have to establish to a jury that you had a bona fide fear that that person was going to cause you great bodily injury or death. And based upon that fear, that you then were reasonable in responding to that fear with force that could cause death. There was never a duty to retreat if you were in your own home, but you still had to prove that you had a true fear that that person was going to cause you injury. Now with the Castle Doctrine,